After playing a few JRPG-inspired games for a couple of months like Sea of Stars and Chained Echoes, I finally got a taste of the OG Classic JRPG vibe you can experience back on the PlayStation 1. All I can say is that Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes is a game worth sinking tens of hours into. It may not be for everyone, but it's going to be one of my top 10 games of 2024. Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes is a JRPG released on April 23, 2024 for the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox, and the PC. The game is published by 505 Games who brought us classics like Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, Terraria, and Cooking Mama. The game was helmed by Konami Veteran and creator of the legendary JRPG series Suikoden Yoshitaka Murayama. Yoshitaka Murayama created Rabbit and Bear Studios with a goal that creators get to keep the intellectual property rights to games they create. This would allow creators to have greater communication between the developers and their fanbase. The studio is also comprised of industry veterans such as Junichi Murakami, who worked on the Castlevania series and directed Castlevania Aria of Sorrows, Osamu Komuta, who worked on Silent Hill 2, wrote on Suikoden 4, and directed Suikoden Tactics and Suikoden Tierkreis. Lastly, Junko Kawano, who was the lead designer for Suikoden and wrote, produced, and designed for both Suikoden 4 and Tactics. This powerhouse roster of gaming legends launched a Kickstarter campaign to fund the creation of Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes and met its minimum goal of $509,713 in just 2 hours. They also added multiple stretch goals, with the most notable one being the side companion prequel game to Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes, Eiyuden Chronicles Rising. Slight spoilers for 100 Heroes. You can skip to this timestamp to jump ahead to some of the mechanics and what the game offers. You have been warned. Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes story revolves around our main protagonist, Noah. Noah is a young man who's from a distant village named Kashiri, which borders between two superpowers, the League of Nations and the Galdian Empire. Noah seeks adventure and joins a mercenary group called The Watch as a warrior in training, which is under the control of Countess Periel Groom. You're then sent on a mission to search a nearby ruin called the Rune Barrows in collaboration with the Galdian Empire, and retrieve an important relic called the Primal Lens. You set off towards a rune barrow with a team composed of Gar, a seasoned wolfman beastin, Mio, a swordswoman from the East Reach, and Leon, a fellow adventure seeker and your 2-day senior in the Watch. You rendezvous with 2 soldiers from the Empire before setting off on your journey. You are then introduced to Saint Kessling, a noble who serves in the military and fights for his house's name, and Hildy, Saint's personal aide. The party must then head into the forest and find a way into the Rune Barrows. After completing a small series of cutscenes and deactivating the Rune Barrows' defenses, and defeating your first boss fight, Noah and the team gains access to the Rune Barrows via the use of their Rune Lens. After investigating the Rune Barrows and trying to find a way to get to the Primal Lens, the party gets separated. Noah and Saint fall into the floor and are far from their teammates' reach. The 2 characters get to know each other more, and this kindles a friendship between them. One who is a self-professed meddler, and another fighting for honor and family. Saint and Noah then stumble into the Primal Lens after solving a few puzzles and are now faced with the Rune Golem that protects the lens. Saint and Noah have a hard time defeating the Rune Golem but are saved in the nick of time by the team, and together they defeat it and retrieve the Primal Lens.
Mission complete!
6 months after the discovery of the Primal Lens lead to a summit between the Galdian Empire and the League of Nations, in which Dukes Aldrich and Countess Periel Groom have a little passive-aggressive spat between the both of them. The Watch is then tasked to investigate rumors of village raids. Noah now has to travel to his village and survey the area for raiders, and unfortunately, his village becomes a victim and is nearly razed.
Now burn it all! What are you... No! Stop!
Stop? Oh, but I can't do that.
Noah meets Saint's unit, they discuss the rumors of these raiders and find out that there has been a fabricated story that the Watch is the one raiding Imperial territories, while the Watch is being fed information that mere bandits are the ones conducting these raids. This was just a ruse by Dukes Eldrix as a pretext to invade Eltisvice and the League of Nations as he runs a campaign to take over the land and use the Primal Lens to their advantage. While Dukes Eldrix conducts his campaign and takes territories one by one, a faction called the Guardians step in and help in the efforts to stop Dukes Eldrix. A young Guardian by the name Marissa aids Noah and his cause to restore peace in Alron, while Saint defects from the Empire due to the atrocities he's seen during the war and decides that Dukes Eldrix's reign of terror must be stopped as he sides with Noah, casting aside his duty to his house, family, and nation. Now that we got a part of the story out of the way, let's discuss the game's mechanics. The game basically runs a party system similar to Suikoden 1 and 2. However, this time you have the capability to choose support units to augment the party's fighting capabilities, resource collecting, or even golden XP rates. A personal favorite of mine is the support character Galador. His unique effect is like summoning Odin in Final Fantasy VIII, where he one-shots enemies that are weaker than the party. The game also has an attendance system. I had to learn how to use this system the hard way. 100 Heroes will have you in scenarios where you have to bring certain teammates with you in order to progress the story. A good example of this is the Proving Grounds. Since I was unaware of how the attendance system works, I had to run a party that was barely functional, while being a bit underleveled, and had a hard time facing the boss. Basically, what the attendance system does is allow the required characters in the story to tag along with you without taking an actual party member slot, giving you the freedom to run the custom-built party the way you want it to be. You can run with the same crew the entire game, or have a fun diverse set according to the story. It all depends on how you utilize the system. The game's combat is absolutely fun. You'll have to learn how to balance between party members. If there are units that have a short attack range, it will only be useful in the front line and attack the enemy's front line as well, while medium attack range characters will be able to attack from your backline, however will not be able to reach the enemy's backline that way. If they are positioned in the front, they'll have enough reach to hit vulnerable targets in the back. Long attack range units will have the most freedom in attacking enemy units. However, they are very frail and preferably are placed in the back lines. During combat, if ever a unit falls in the front line, the backline unit in the same column will take its place. This puts mages or similarly frail units in a rough spot and leave them vulnerable to damage. Boss fights will also include gimmicks in them. One of my least favorite gimmicks is the boss fight while trying to recruit Magical Girl in the lore. The gimmick will kind of rely on RNG if you've successfully targeted the right book, which holds a hammer that bonks a giant mole rat you're fighting. Think of it like playing whack-a-mole, but without the hammer. You'll be guessing where your hammer is and drop some sweet big PP damage, or else you've effectively wasted a turn for that unit. A good example of using these gimmicks is the fight with Kogan, Euthys, and Zabi. Once you defeat a member of their team, Kogan will then show a lever that drops a stone on your side. You can attack the gimmick lever and position the stone towards their side. Learning how the gimmick works also teaches you the initiative order if you haven't been paying attention to it. Being able to see who goes next, first, and last while keeping an eye on the gimmick makes the fight a bit challenging. Another gimmick I enjoy is the fight with the boss at Haishan Old Town. Being able to unbalance the boss by damaging the crabs that keep the boss upright is a fun gimmick and is very rewarding, as when the boss is off balance, you can then wail on it and just drop huge numbers. Difficulty-wise, combat is not as hard as it is, as you can grind right at the start and get levels ahead. Being a bit over-leveled makes these early fights trivial. And speaking of big numbers, characters can use hero combos. Characters who have a certain type of relationship or synergy can do these hero combos, and they are nothing but amazing. If you've never played Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, you wouldn't know that Sane, Marissa, and Noah can do a hero combo together with Guru, CJ, and Isha and call it the true hero combo, and they do major damage and buff the team as well.
Eiyuden! Unthinkable! this the end?
That's how it's done.
Another thing about combat is the rune system. Each character has a set amount of rune slots you can use. These can range from them being able to get more physical strength, magic damage, armor values, speed, luck, dexterity, HP, or just straight up attacks or elemental spells of varying levels. These runes can be game-changing, especially when you learn how to kit out your units and find what makes them tick. There's even one unit that has 8 rune slots, and I won't spoil it for you, but that character is one of the hardest ones to recruit and is missable if you don't meet their requirements. 100 Heroes does not shy away from its Suikoden roots. The game includes war scenarios where you command a legion of units and fight the opposing army in grid-style combat. You are then given objectives on what to do in order to win, and things to be avoided so you don't lose the encounter. This mode can be a bit easy as you can easily run through it with the basic setup the game hands you. However, if you are careless, the game will not hesitate to hand you a defeat in this mode. It can be a bit time consuming, however it is very amusing to see members of your unit show their skills during the war. Some increasing defense, some healing your units, and some even bolstering the legion's damage. Another feature the war scenario offers are skills your generals can do. Similar to the ones mentioned earlier, you can also do direct damage to enemy legions without engaging in combat. Stop them from moving, provoke them into attacking your legion instead, or even just straight up moving to a grid without wasting a turn. Another thing I noticed is that these soldiers aren't just unknown soldiers. These are backers fighting the war alongside the heroes, and that's a great touch by the developers. It truly gives off the spirit of Suikoden, where you have to gather as a community to fight the forces of evil. 100 Heroes is pretty much a love letter to classic JRPG fans and Suikoden fans alike. The art style is amazing. Seeing the 3D rendered backgrounds mixed with the 2D sprites is just eye candy. For me, it takes me back to the good old days of the PS1 era. Another thing I love about the game's direction is how the combat seems fluid. Characters move around in the order they're supposed to, as they should, as it is a turn-based JRPG. However, they don't wait around when they use items or defend as long as it's in your turn order. The camera follows your characters around while fighting, giving that up-close and personal feel while they're attacking. And if they're just attacking and not using rule lenses, the units attack in spaced-out intervals, which makes it feel like an autonomous unit instead of just people waiting for their turns. In terms of enemy design, seeing the high-resolution 3D enemy models does evoke a sort of Octopath Traveler boss feel to the fights as well. The camera work in the game is also great. Zooming in or out so you can see landmarks or interesting points in the background is just pure eye candy. The story is quite engaging, however there are some characters that I would love to have learned more about, aside from being able to use the divination to learn some parts of their backstory. The unlikely friendship between Sane and Noel feels like a parallel between Joey and Ryu from Suikoden, while Leon feels like the Nanami stand-in for this game. If the Suikoden influences weren't evident enough, we have duels. Major plot points in the games are decided by these duels. The first duel you get to experience is a duel between Sane and Noah in Altus Vice.
Now! Attack! What's next? It's over, Noah. Accepted. Not yet, it isn't. What about your friends up there?
Damn it, Sane.
Dueling is a lot more understandable in 100 Heroes compared to Suikoden 1 or 2, as the game has voice acting, and you can use these audio cues to know what's going to happen next when you're fighting.
You'd rather keep your hands clean than secure a future for your people? Damn right I would! greater good! Don't be so full of yourself! Says the boy with no vision whatsoever.
During a duel, you have 3 options to use. The main options you'll be using are attack and counter. They're pretty self-explanatory. Attack damages the enemy, and counter is your defensive option. The bar below your character's HP is the tension bar, and once this bar is filled, you are then able to use a break attack. Break attacks can greatly reduce an enemy's HP. Enemy HP bars also have a break indicator, which means if you successfully hit them with a break attack, their HP goes down to the next break checkpoint. The best thing about these duels is that the animations for these fights are intense. You can feel the power in their attacks, and once you win a duel with a break attack, it just feels so satisfying. Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes is not just a title. The game does boast a roster of 119 characters you can recruit. Some are missable if you don't explore around, some automatically join your party at a certain point in the game, and some require side quests in order for them to see if you're worth their time. One of my favorite early recruits have to be Yugo and Yusuke. Both are low maintenance characters and are strong in their own right. Yusuke though is my go-to boss killer due to his ability called Charge. He can charge his attacks in 2 turns and deal massive damage when he uses his skill or normal attack. Another one of my favorite recruits has to be Reina. Reina is a great tank and does decent damage. Her gimmick is that she covers or defends her allies and retaliates when she receives a close range attack. Reina's recruitment challenge has to be frustrating as you will be in your early to late 30s when you encounter her. You are required to deal 1573 damage to her in normal mode or 1699 in hard mode in 3 turns. During my playthrough, Reina's encounter was bugged, and you have to defeat her during the 2nd turn instead of the 3rd turn. It was a rough challenge and drained some time for me, but it was worth it. The secret here is to have 2 units that can charge their damage, 2 units that can put her to sleep, and 1 unit that uses a Rune Shard of Darkness to do 315 damage when Reina's turn starts. You can come back to challenge her later in the game, but having a really good tank in the middle of the story makes it a lot easier. Speaking of challenges, some of these recruitments are a pain, to be honest. Recruiting carry requires you to recruit Kurtz and complete in a Shokugeki no Soma type of cook-off without the moaning of the judges, of course. You have to beat these chefs that challenged you until you beat the boss of their rival group that's harassing Kurtz to recruit carry. Every challenge has a 10-minute cooldown. I'm not sure if this was a move by the devs to prolong the recruitment process, but it is a bit of a drag. Speaking of drag, recruiting a Reed is also a pain. You must recruit Dr. Cork first in a series of Beyblade-like games called Beigoma. You have to hunt down specific NPCs that are mentioned during the side quest and beat them until you progress towards the end of the side quest for a not-so-strong unit. A tip here is to find 3-star Beigomas and do this quest later on in the story so you have access to some late-game areas. During the game's release, there was also a bug where you could not recruit a character named Lam if you talked to her before her recruitment requirements were met. Try to say that fast. It is a common practice among JRPG players to talk to almost every NPC in the area, especially if they stand out. This time, this bug, unbeknownst to players, locked them out of a recruitable character, and some players had to wait for a patch to fix the encounter, or restart the game just to get her. Luckily, during the time I was recording, a patch came out and fixed the bug, and I got Lam right after. Lastly, fast travel is hidden behind the recruitable character, and she is going to be a pivotal character to the story, so if you want to do side quests while going back and forth from the main story, this character is unlockable around the 10 to 15 hour mark. If there was a surefire way to get me hooked on a game, your game must have a banger soundtrack. I'm not gonna lie, the soundtrack to 100 Heroes is amazing. The track that plays in the forest is an absolute banger. And the track in Altus Vice as well. Take a listen. Aside from the music, the game features voice acting for every playable character and significant character in the story. The voice actors and actresses have done a great job trying to convey the emotions and making sure the delivery of the lines isn't flat. One thing I did notice is that some characters pronounce a few words differently. I take that it might be some sort of regional thing due to accents, but characters like Isha, who is from New Nevea, say New Neva at times, and that kind of makes it seem like some of these lines were rushed.
Now, be certain to give your parents that pamphlet. Remember, the town is called New Neva. That's enough to receive your first special perk in New Nevea.
Gar is one of my favorite voiced characters because he does sound like a beastin who's been through a lot. He sounds wise and has been through it all.
Warriors don't die like dogs. They pick themselves up off the ground and they damn well survive!
You're right.
Guru is Australian and I love it.
The hatred's mutual, fathead.
Pastol is queer-coded, but is apparently not gay, but he does use sachet and slay, and I live for that.
Style? Oh, my clothes. Aren't they fab? They turn all the heads. Good for luring game, too. I have absolutely sashayed a boar into a bear trap.
Impressive.
Your takeaway here should be that A, Pastol's traps are astonishingly unique, and B, with those traps, Pastol hooks a lot of meat. Sound like someone you'd find useful?
Slay! Slay!
He's definitely gay. Milora is fun, and I love her character trope where she always talks about justice because she's a magical girl.
But it's a magical girl's duty to smack the bad guys up with love and justice before they become a menace.
Justice!
And Cassius just reminds me of Joe from Family Guy.
Ready yourselves! This day we fight for our homes, for our king, and for the future of our country!
We even have a guild master who has that mafia boss from the 60s type of accent, or a Jersey accent, and all I can say is that is a playful choice.
The name's Gokto. Ymir expressed interest in building a town here. And when I smell profit, when I smell justice against an oppressive empire, then I say, sign me up. Just so happens I'm well salted in the art of stewardship.
And Cassandra just sounds so good.
Busy, busy, busy. There's so much to do. The troops will need a hearty meal before going to such an important battle. And let's not forget the victory feast. There's not a moment to spare if we want those tables spilling over with roasts and pies and the rest of it.
Overall, the voice acting is great and absolutely makes the story epic. If we're talking about minigames, Eiyuden Chronicles does not skimp on it. You have Eggfoot Racing, think of it like Chocobo Racing, but a lot simplified and easier. Fishing is a great time waster as well, and there's a character who requires you to catch the fish to recruit them. Beigoma is your Beyblade minigame, and there's a card game you have to do where you have to beat the sum of the cards your opponent puts in a row. They have their own card effects and gimmicks too, which makes it a fun minigame. You'll have to buy card packs and build your deck to win these card battles, and a character is hidden behind this minigame too. You'll have to collect 120 cards so you can recruit them. I'm not sure if you consider this a minigame, but there is also a trading system, where you have to buy and sell goods to make a profit, and you guessed it right. A character is locked behind trading, where you have to make 50,000 in profit. The secret here is to purchase items from a different island or region and sell it in another region for a higher price. Base building is also time-consuming as well, as you'll be hunting for resources to upgrade your base. You can also create a guild inside your base, so your guild members would do the resource collection for you via missions. Think of it like the Argoshi in Monster Hunter. Our characters will have traits that will make them efficient at certain tasks, and will reward you with secret items if you get an epic success in one of these guild missions. Lastly, the theater. This is a personal favorite of mine, as you can have your cast of characters act out characters in the play. If you have a weird sense of humor like I do, I had Gar act as Romeo and Guru as Juliet. It sounded like a banger in my head, but the crowd disagreed.
Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father, and refuse thy name. Or, if thou willst it, I shall cast aside mine.
I love you, Juliet!
Oh, I love thee, Romeo.
Forever and always!
No, Romeo, thou must livest with me until time itself expires.
You can tell that the voice actors took their time and had a lot of fun voicing their respective characters as other characters in the theater play. They even do ad-libs. A final tidbit I'd like to add is the mysterious dungeon. In my opinion, it's similar to those levels in Final Fantasy Tactics where you have to complete floors with increasingly difficult enemies. The experience is great, and this serves as an ultimate test to the player's min-maxing know-how. After praising the game, it's time to split some hairs and go through a few things I found during my playthrough. As mentioned earlier, the game has bugs. There was a late game dungeon where I was in and experienced a bug where my character was falling non-stop even though she was supposed to be on the ground. Another bug I found is when using Noah's and Chandra's hero combo, he stays in place with Chandra instead of going back to his place in the backlines of the party. Another thing I noticed is that during the Shokugeki no Soma sections, some character descriptions were inaccurate. The Gastronome of Fire was called the Spinadier of Fire instead, mixing up two different mini-games or side quests that you have access to during that point in time. I'm not sure if this was an oversight in the translation of the game, but hopefully this gets patched. I also noticed some of the translations are not syncing with the voice acting. It's a small thing, but it can be glaring to other players. Another one is the cutscenes where you're supposed to have characters in your party, and a body double of them appears in the background. I found it weird that it happened in two cutscenes. One that shows Sabine with my party while she was standing guard behind Periel, and the second one is when Guru joins your party to the Proving Grounds, and he is also in the background. To be honest, I thought I was seeing double, but it was actually the game itself. Lastly, I would also prefer to have the capability of being able to name the base instead of using some of the pre-made options, because the characters don't even say it in the dialogue, so being able to name the base yourself adds that personal touch. Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes is an amazing game with an amazing cast of characters. I can name a few that have become my favorites in my 60+ hours in the game. Momo is a strong mage that you can add to your team and is sitting on a secret. Wave is the leader of the Guardians, which is a tanky character that can dish out the damage too. Any of the characters with the charge skill are worth their salt. Scarlet, Yusuke, and Euphorius are great team members. I would like to see a sequel to 100 Heroes and have some of the characters be recurring characters that we can recruit, or even have Noah be recruitable as well, just like the older Suikoden games. Being able to go to the East Reach is also a good example of an area that the sequel can go to, or the University of Karls where everybody seems to be ecstatic to get accepted into. Another thing I thoroughly enjoyed is that there are tons of Easter eggs you can find, like a Chrono Cross Easter egg in Noah's house, or the space battles was here in the desert, or even Nanami's ice cream recipe. The devs really left some treats for the fans and backers of this game, especially with some of the funny scenes you can get in the hot spring sections in your base. It's just sad that Murayama passed away before seeing the success of the game he and his team worked on, a passion project built by a wonderful community, living up to the spirit of his previous success in Suikoden. If you got this far, thank you so much for watching. If you can leave a like, comment, and subscribe, that would be truly appreciated. This helps with the video and the algorithm and pushes it out to more people. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.